Hello, welcome to another episode of our podcast. We are with the Philosophy Club with Caleb, Daniel, Shu, Joel, and Sebastian. I don't know why I
Yeah.
only said Daniel's
Yeah,
last
but
name.
we're super excited for podcast episode 2. This is gonna be super exciting, guys. But next week we'll probably have some other teachers, but this is a special episode, so we want to give this to you guys.
Today they will be discussing the infamous trolley problem, and they will just go at it. All right,
So
Daniel.
if you wanna,
All right, so I will begin by describing this ethical dilemma. So today I pose the trolley problem. Imagine you wake up one day and you see a trolley barreling down the tracks. Right in front of it is 5 people and they're tied to the tracks and they're all gonna die, right? But next to you, you see a lever. If you flip this lever, the track will like divert and the train will go onto a different track and it'll only kill one person. So the ethical dilemma is, should you flip the lever, saving 5 and killing one other person? So let's get some initial positions.
Joel, you say more the merrier, right? Okay, so of course you flip the lever, reduce the amount of death. Of course. Here you go, Joel. Come on.
Well, another position is that you don't have the authority to play God and flip the switch on that one person. So you just let it play out as it is, right?
All right, so we've got 2 differing positions. So Sebastian, you're saying that
Yeah.
well, it's simple arithmetic, right? Saving saving those 4 people is a net gain of 4 lives, right? And
Yeah.
Joel, could you explain your position a little bit further?
So even though it seems like it might be clear cut, especially in this basic scenario, I think you can still argue that even despite like the kind of unrealistic like nature of the scenario, like by exercising your authority on that one person, you're basically claiming like the moral high ground over the scenario. So it's like, but do you really have the authority to do that, or does only God have the authority to do that?
Okay, so you're questioning whether it's in your place
Hold
to
on.
make that decision, right?
I gotta tell him. But the fact that you are in that situation in the first place is exactly what gives you the authority to judge. The fact that you're the decision maker. You are by chance or by choice of some higher entity. You are given the authority.
Okay, I think that's a fair argument. Sebastian, I would like to make the challenge a little bit differently. So the horrible thing about the trolley problem is that no matter what position you take, you could basically just variate the dilemma and make it even more difficult for depending on what position you take, right? So Sebastian, you said that you should just save as many lives as possible, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to offer some other examples that might challenge you. There's 3 of these, right? The first one is, imagine there's a trolley barreling down the tracks and it's about to run over 5 people. But instead of you being able to divert the track to kill someone else, you're standing, there is no second track. You're standing over the ledge on a bridge, and next to you is a guy who's really big. And if you push him over the bridge, he'll land on the track and block the train. The question is, if it's right for you to flip the lever and kill that one person, is it also right for you to push that man over and save the lives of those 5 other people? Another example would be like, imagine you're a doctor, right? And you've got 5 people that all need organ transplants. Maybe one needs a heart, maybe one needs a liver, maybe one needs kidneys, whatever, right? And because you can't locate these organ transplants, they're all going to die, right? But in the waiting room, you have a guy who is perfectly healthy, and you could totally just sedate him, take out his organs, and save 5 lives, right? Obviously, he would die, but there's a net gain of 4, right? And so, by your logic, do you think that those situations would be permissible? I guess the point that I'm getting at is, aren't you kind of forgetting about the right that one person has to life?
So what you're essentially saying is that because you are more personally involved in the death of that one, you think it's now suddenly less okay to kill him. But they're all the same. They're all the same. They're all essentially the same. So the right choice would be to kill the one guy and take all his organs. The choice would be to push the fat fatty, down off the bridge.
Uh-huh.
Because like what and what why should I feel more guilty about it just because I am more involved?
Okay. All right.
Okay, I have two more questions in counter to that. What if instead of one person and the five people, that one person was say like a family member or your mom or something? Would you still choose to kill those five people, or would you sacrifice your mom for those five people? Or if you chose to not do anything, are you still responsible for the deaths of those people?
I'm killing the five.
Okay.
My mom is more important than
Isn't
any
that
than any
isn't that
five
kind of
normal.
contradictory though?
No, because the principle what aspect is it contradictory?
Because in one case you're saying you should just save as many people as possible, and in the other you're not saving as many people as possible, right?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, sure. If I was operating by that same frame of logic, but let's just say the fact that you are placed in that authoritative position means that you can use whatever rule you want to judge the lives. Is what I'm saying.
So is your position then one of just egoism? You do whatever you think is best for you?
Not necessarily best for me, but just what I think. Yeah, sure. Best for me
Okay.
ultimately.
So
And then the question of like, what was it?
If you don't do anything, are you still responsible for all those deaths?
Absolutely. You are placed there. It's your choice to make.
Joel, do you
It's
disagree?
your choice to make. Joel,
Well,
your comment.
I don't really agree with. So you're saying if you're in an opportunity, or if you have an opportunity and you're in a situation, then you automatically have the right to choose. But I think there are definitely scenarios where, I don't know. For example, like I don't know, like there's a shooting and you see victims piling up around you. You could save them, but you choose to run away. Are you obligated to save as many people as possible and risk your own life?
What do you think, Sebastian?
Obligated? Obligated by what? Like so like a moral obligation is what you're saying.
Well, see, I think you're making a distinction, right? Because this trolley problem is such a momentous decision that you're saying that if God placed you or whatever, if you end up in this situation, then it's your choice, right? And you should have liberty to choose however you want. But aren't all the moral decisions we make basically smaller versions of the same idea? And so, do you think that in all moral decisions you should just choose whatever you think is best for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
You think that you should do what's best for you in all situations?
well, that is how everyone ultimately ends up acting. Even when you act selflessly, you are acting with the desire for some benefit, and that benefit will ultimately bolster your own idea of self worth or whatever.
But that's like indirect, like
But yeah, it's
self
in
validation kind of thing,
yeah.
isn't it? Like
Finish your point.
no, like what I'm saying is okay, Sebastian. Let's say this. Let's say this. Okay, you take a test and you see somebody sees you cheating. Okay, like what would you do in that situation?
If someone saw me cheating,
Yeah, if somebody saw you cheating, what would you do?
uh, hope and pray that they don't tell.
You wouldn't silence them or anything.
Silence. Or go up to
But
them and
that's
intimidate
in
them.
your self interest, isn't it?
Yeah, but what if I feel guilt for doing such a thing, for
This
being
is
so
this
terrible
is
to them?
So, someone has a question in the back. You still want to ask it? Someone brought up moral compass, and like we all have rules, of course, but it almost seems like an obligation rather than conscious. I walk onto a track and there's a train going towards five people, and I turn around and walk the other way, and I don't know what happens. I assume that would mean that it's on my conscience that I technically potentially let five
No, I would just repeat it after.
Okay, of like, is this a conscious question or is it a moral? Is it what
So Faith asked about the idea of being put in that situation, but walking away. Is it a moral question or a conscious choice question? Right?
are you morally obligated to act, or are you acting on what?
Are you morally obligated to act, or are you acting on your own conscience?
If I saw Daniel Shu getting beaten up by a bunch of thugs on the street, like I don't think that it's my obligation to help Daniel Shu. You know what I mean? Daniel Shu, if he's strong enough to defend them by himself, that's good for Daniel Shu. But if I don't defend him, it's okay. It's all good, right? I would feel no guilt from it. You know, like especially if I didn't know Daniel Shu on a personal level. Now, if he asked like, "Hey, Caleb, help me, please," then okay, maybe. But like, if there's no relation, I would see no problem with it.
So if you see like a woman being mugged or something, you're not gonna do anything about it.
It's not my problem.
So I think you're holding a similar position to Sebastian then, where
But
the
but
right
what
thing
if
to do is just
but what if
whatever
you took
is
an
best
oath
for you.
beforehand that from here on out, every time that I see something bad happening, or every time that I see someone get beat up, I'm gonna step in to help. What would you do then?
And you do it.
I think we're derailing a bit,
No,
pun intended. Okay.
no, this is
So
fun.
so we talked a bit about Sebastian's position. Let's talk more about Joel's position. So remember, Joel said that it's not in his authority to make that decision. So to counter that, I would say, why don't we make the stakes a little higher, right? Instead of just 5 people being killed, what if it's a nuclear bomb, right? That's shooting towards the city of New York, right? All of those people will die. You have a choice. Are you going to are you going to like redirect the bomb, say, to like a part in Canada, the Canadian wilderness or something, where only a few people are gonna like people who are living off the grid are gonna die? Do you think it's the right decision to do that?
Well, I'm not really sure what someone with my stance, like with a firm stance on what I was saying, I don't know what they would say, but what I would say, like, what I actually think would be, like, yes, I think I would divert it, and whatever decision you end up making, like within your, like, because it's a high pressure situation, right? Like,
Okay. What if someone gave you like an hour to think about it?
well, then, yeah, I think the most logical answer would be to divert it into the wilderness. And if I'm talking about like what I truly believe is that God would not judge you as he wouldn't hold you accountable. He would, because it's a very difficult situation, right? So I don't know. I think if either way, like, well, let's go back to just the normal trolley problem.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't have much time to choose. No matter what
Okay.
you do, you'll be justified. But um in if you make this like the stakes a little bit higher, then it would probably be better to choose the less people.
So you're saying there's a calculus, right? Like if the stakes are low or low enough, then because you don't have that much authority, like you can't act. But once the stakes get a certain amount high enough, once certain amount of people's lives are at risk, are you saying then it becomes okay to take action? Or are you saying either choice you make, it doesn't matter?
I think you could say that, but I think it also ultimately comes down to your to just your conscience, and you're striving for this objective moral stance, or you're striving for objective morality, which is killing people is bad most of the time. Well, I mean, I would say it's always wrong, but so if you're going off of that logic, then either way you're doing something that's not good. Only one might have a better outcome. So I think in that regard, you kind of just have to choose. And if you really are convicted towards a certain outcome, which in a higher stakes situation would probably be saving more lives, then that would be the right choice. But I don't think you're necessarily like condemned if you if you're just like if it's too much pressure for you.
Okay. quick question for both of you. Did you have to think much about whether you would flip the lever or not, or was it something that just came to you, the decision you're gonna make? Was it something like you deliberate on what the right thing to do is, and then you take your position, or did you take your position and then think of rational reasons to defend it? I guess my question is, how do we get to the moral views that we have?
Well, oftentimes everyone.
I'm just talking for you.
Yeah. Well, what I did and what I think everyone does is that they take that position beforehand and then they try to rationalize it thereafter.
Okay. What about
Because-
you, Joel? Is that what happened for you?
I mean, I guess you could say, like, honestly, if I was put in this situation, I think my stance would be end up just being to divert the thing, even though I'm justifying the other choice, and that's because I think, well, I can rationalize really either way, and I think it's more about the intent behind it.
Okay, I like that. Because if the moral maxim you follow is that you should just do whatever's most loving, I think that perhaps you might argue that it's possible to take both options with love, right? Trying to do the best you can in the situation that it presents. Yeah.
I'm gonna give a controversial take. Maybe if there's a lover, right? Maybe you just leave it there and let all six die. So it's either way, you're gonna let a person die. You might as well not be on your conscience. They
Okay.
either save
Inaction
or
is
they,
for
you know.
fools.
So I think that's kind of the same argument that Joel's bringing up. Like, if you just let it go, I mean, it's a terrible tragedy that those 5 people die, but it wasn't in your place to change it. I guess would be that kind of argument. So I would like to kind of divert our conversation. The reason why I bring up this trolley problem is because I want to analyze the different ways in which we can look at different moral positions and then figure out how to reconcile them. Because, like, imagine if you three, right, are suddenly teleported to this train track, right, and you have perhaps 10 minutes to decide on what you three are gonna do, right? How do you, whenever you argue, right, Joel's just gonna say, oh well, it's not in my authority to do it, right? Or maybe he won't, but whatever, right? And Sebastian might say, oh well, it's in my best interest, and Sam might say, whatever, right? And so the you guys are all coming from different moral presuppositions, right? The right thing to do is whatever's right for me. The right thing to do is whatever ends with the best outcome. The right thing to do is whatever, right? How do you rectify those different ethical frameworks?
So let's say us three are there, right?
Yeah.
For those 5 people, what if they're related to all three of us, right?
Well, I'm just
Let's
saying,
not.
like,
I'm just saying.
if
So there's all 5 of those people are related to us three,
We all
right?
have babies together.
But there's one person that we just don't know, right? I think we would have an easier time to kill that person and save the lives of those 5 people, right?
yeah, we probably would, but
But
my point is, like,
what I'm saying.
go back to the original trolley problem, right? You guys have differing positions on what the right thing to do is. So is it possible at all even to come to an agreement?
No.
What do you think? How would you choose if you all three could have a vote?
Well, Joel evidently doesn't want to take up any authority on himself. So what I would do in that position is just take that authority on myself and just boot him out. Because
How would you boot him out?
just tell him like, hey man, it's you. You don't want the authority here. You just think, oh, whatever happens, happens. So I'm here. I'm happening, and I'm happening to flip the lever.
And Joel, how would you respond?
I think all of our stances can agree that it's based on your intent, right?
Yeah, to kill them. Hello?
Sebastian, do you think it's based on your intent?
What do you mean by based on intent?
What, Joel, do you want to explain further?
So, you could. I mean, it depends on what you think is objectively moral. But Sebastian did say if it was his mom there, then he would save his mom, right? And that was because of his intent to save his mom, even though he knew it wasn't utilitarian or whatever. So, in that way, isn't it just so can we all agree that it's basically like your intent.
Like intent in that moment is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of relative.
Okay, so if that's the point at which we all agree on, okay. If that's the point at which we all agree on, the last question I guess would be, what makes an intent, like what defines good intent and what defines bad intent? Do you think you guys could come to a conclusion on that? What do you think, Joel? What makes your intent good or bad?
Well, I mean, if I'm talking about, I think objectively, like, your intent would be good based on if it was out of like one, faith, or two, love, and of course you might waver a little bit on defining those two things, but
Okay, faith and love.
Yeah.
What about Sebastian?
When you act good, it is acting with love, right? That's what you would say.
That's what I would say. Is that
Yeah.
what you say?
And ultimately what is loving is acting in a way that's selfless. But when you act in a way that's selfless, what makes you want to act in that way of selflessness? And that's what I was saying earlier about how ultimately everything you do is selfish. Everything. So even in order to love, you're sort of having self-love. You sort of love yourself. So
Yeah.
there's no perfect good, really. You get what I'm saying?
So there's no right choice. It's
There's no
impossible.
true
It's
right
impossible to be
choice.
good.
Yeah.
Is your
To be
conclusion?
completely good. Yeah.
well, I do agree with that. It's not possible to be perfectly good, and there's no outcome in the situation which is perfectly good. So you're just trying to strive towards whatever standard you have. For me, it would be objective standards, but for Sebastian, I I don't really know.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of like wrapping up or coming to a conclusion over this issue, right? Because what we often like to think in black and white, right? I think it's always wrong to flip the lever. You think it's always right to not flip the lever, right? But perhaps it's not so much the action itself, but the degree to which that action has an intent that is good, right? And so maybe you could be more or less loving flipping the lever, and the person who would be more loving would be the moral person. Does that make sense?
All right, I think that concludes our second episode, guys. All right, thank you guys for coming to Podcast Club. Yeah. Not yet. But this will be posted on MCS Eagles Call. On there, I think we're gonna do a poll on who you guys want to interview next. But ultimately, that was a great podcast. Let us know if you want to have more like this. So this will be uploaded on YouTube, and they're supposed to be updated. All right. Anything
And
else?
if you want them to come back. All right.
All right. Thank you guys, and that ends it.